Crypto traders are focused on Tuesday's midterm elections in the United States, which might have major implications for regulatory policy or economic decisions. And joining us now for that conversation is Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson. Welcome, Congressman, to the show. So you are up for re-election against Democrat Vanessa Enoch. And I guess, first off, since we're a Bitcoin crypto show, is crypto at all an issue in the ballot going into the elections?
It's way down there, and a lot of it is because I've been so outspoken on the issue. And look, it is not the top issue in any congressional district, but it is important for the future of finance. And so, people will understand that right now. Definitely, the top economic issue is inflation, and the approaches to keeping our economy strong. But for the future of finance, fintech and inherently crypto, and then specifically Bitcoin, and the future of money are all really important for the financial architecture of our country.
Sure.
And so if it comes up, it's only because I've been really outspoken on it.
Well, prediction site Polymarket was forecasting that 64% there was a chance of the GOP sweeping Congress. We spoke to them this morning. And, when it comes to crypto, is there a party that is more crypto friendly than the other?
I don't really think it's a partisan issue. The reality is, Republicans have been better on it than Democrats lately, but I think that the trend has been the Democratic leadership is all, goes on seniority. So the leadership of the party is significantly older than the leadership of the Republican Party. And in general, crypto has attracted younger folks in finance. The status quo is favored, older money, and the opportunity is for younger folks who generally understand tech, and certainly in Congress understand tech much better. And so if there's a partisan breakdown, it generally is sort of like the Patriot Act. If you love the big government surveillance programs, you tend to dislike crypto. And if you love crypto, you tend to disfavor big government surveillance programs like the Patriot Act. And there are people in both parties that break on that issue.
So, Congressman, you've introduced crypto-related legislation such as the Keep Your Coins Act, which ensures that people can custody their coins on their own private digital wallets without restrictions. Do you have an update on the latest on that bill?
Yeah, there's not been a path forward with Democrats in that committee, in the Financial Services Committee. And the first bill that I introduced was 100% bipartisan with Darren Soto from Florida. And we introduced that at the end of 2018. It's the Token Taxonomy Act. And that would really deal with what everyone kind of sees as the most important issue is, can the SEC keep tying up the market indefinitely, by saying, well, come work out a deal with us. And a lot of the chaos we see in our markets are people fleeing U.S. regulatory jurisdiction, not to avoid our laws, but to find a law that's clear in whether it was Clayton or Gensler. They've resisted providing any kind of clarity for the market, whether it's individual firms, exchanges. Other countries have Bitcoin ETFs. America does not. And so we need that regulatory clarity.
Yeah. Speaking of bills in the works, the Digital Commodities Exchange Act has been dropped. The Lummis-Gillibrand bill has been discussed, the DCCPA. And you've gone on record to say crypto should not be an interpretive art. So maybe tell us what you mean by that in the context of the state of crypto in the United States right now, and when will we see crypto regulation passed to get that clarity that is so demanded by the industry right now?
Yeah, there's a small chance that here at the end of the year, Republicans and Democrats could come together to provide a stablecoin bill. We've tried hard. It's close to there, but we have a little bit of work left to do. I think that'll probably carry on into first quarter of next year. And while the market isn't overwhelmingly demanding regulatory clarity for stablecoins, it is important for Congress to work with that. And even when you look at some of the dynamics of what's going on, whether it's FTX's balance sheet or others, stablecoins are important on-ramps and off-ramps for liquidity in the market. And so getting that clarity there will be really important. And it'll also be important to establish a way for Congress to work together. My hope is that we can also get a Bitcoin ETF. It really should be a no-brainer for our regulatory agencies. If you can get a gold ETF, gold is clearly on a commodities exchange, but the ETF is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. They work together to create a gold ETF. Why can't they do it for Bitcoin, because even Gary Gensler acknowledges that Bitcoin is not a security. He's not been clear on anything else, but that's been some of the frustration in the market. So we'll probably work to provide at least those kind of crawl, walk, run steps to be able to get clarity.
So I want to address some of the things you mentioned there. So Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong was saying last week during an earnings call that private stablecoins like USDC could be a US CBDC or digital dollar. Where do you stand on stablecoins, and what are your thoughts on a statement like that?
Well, I think stablecoins would alleviate and be a much better alternative to a central bank digital currency. And frankly, they would create demand for treasuries. And that would be great, because the government isn't fully funded. The Federal Reserve, part of what's fueled inflation is Congress has spent more money than anyone will even lend us. And so the Federal Reserve became the lender of last resort. That effectively devalued the currency. It created monetary inflation that led to asset bubbles with asset price inflation. We've seen that bubble burst, but now it's moved out into consumer price inflation. And I think broadly the community gets that. That's part of the appeal of the Bitcoin white paper, which we just celebrated, October 31st, the anniversary of it. So, I think in the space, being able to provide some sort of clarity is going to have to come from Congress, and people have kind of given up and losing patience with Gary Gensler and his regime.
Right. And one of those bills is the DCCPA. And some folks in the crypto industry are concerned that it might be a little too strict. One of the provisions there is, should crypto companies have to register with the CFTC? And overall, most of the bills I mentioned before does give the CFTC more oversight on crypto spot exchanges and the like. So I'd just like to hear your thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the frustration is, Congress has these lines of jurisdiction, so you would think that whether it's the Commodity Futures Exchange or the Securities and Exchange Commission, that would be a financial services jurisdiction. But in Congress, commodities are overseen by the agriculture committees, whether it's in the House or the Senate, instead of Senate Banking or the House Financial Services Committee. So if you wonder why things are kind of half measures on so many fronts, a lot of it comes down to committees of jurisdiction. And we look at stable coins, for example, we should be able to provide clarity for what is a stable coin, whether it's backed by treasuries on the one hand or commodities on the other. And how you buy and sell the commodities, of course, is related by the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. But once you start structuring as a payment system, that's clearly a financial services jurisdiction, and we should be able to solve the whole problem instead of these half measures. And I think that's the problem with a lot of these bills that push everything to CFTC, is it could say, well, CFTC could do something. So Senator Stabenow's got a bill, for example, that would create a Bitcoin spot ETF. And well, the CFTC isn't going to oversee an ETF. I mean, that they have to make the SEC do their job, and that might involve different personnel at the SEC, but it might also involve just legislation. So we take it out of the commission's jurisdiction. Congress just passes something that's clear and simple. And the Howey test that the Securities and Exchange Commission has used to determine whether something's a security or not isn't even law. It's a court case from the 1950s. And they're trying to apply it to, digital assets. And that's where I've referred to it kind of interpretive art, and no matter, what, whether it was Clayton or Gensler, they look at the paint splatters and they see security when they're at the Securities and Exchange Commission. And the market really wants everyone to look at it and see the same thing. This looks like a security. This looks like a commodity. This looks like something else, which is, a utility token or a payment system that would be regulated, or a utility coin that would be regulated by the Federal Trade Commission.
Yeah, it reminds me of a criticism that, it may not be the best idea to apply analog laws to digital innovation. And to that effect, I wonder, another topic being discussed in the crypto community these days is, decentralized finance. And do lawmakers even know enough about what DeFi is? And if not, do they have what it takes to pass legislation on it? Or, should it be something left untouched, like a sandbox that should be developed until we really truly understand what it can do?
Well, even a sandbox law would provide clarity because right now everyone's scared off with the capital because you're one adverse decision or enforcement action away from nuking the whole capital stack. My concern, if I go back to my time in the private sector as a business guy, if I were putting some capital in, say as an angel investor, to something, I would still want to know, well, okay, we've got 2 years, but at the end of this, is there a path to clarity? And I just think we're not going to get there without a law. And, I am optimistic. I think Patrick McHenry will be the chairman of the committee. He definitely understands the issues. An increasing number of my colleagues do. And that includes, Democrats and Republicans. And so I think we can rise to the challenge and solve it. Whether we can get it past the Senate, that's a little bit of a challenge in a different sense. But I'm encouraged by, the work that
if you were to peg a timeline on that, when do you think you might be able to get something done?
Pardon me?
If you were to peg a timeline on that, when do you think you might be able to get something done?
I think we'll get a stablecoin bill by Q1. And, my hope is that the work that we do will be able to get to a Bitcoin spot ETF in 2023. And the path to that might be a standalone bill, or it might be, my Token Taxonomy Act has a 4-part test. It doesn't have to be my test. I'm biased towards it, but at the end of the day, we need something that serves as a bright line. So not just the investors, but the innovators themselves, and especially the regulators know, even if you want to call this a security, it is not. Or even if you want to call this a commodity, it is not. Now you know who regulates you, and you can act accordingly, and that will either attract or drive off capital, and people will be able to launch their projects. There's no reason that with the U.S. being the home to all this innovation, that we should have 75 to 90% of the liquidity offshore.